Now I am unmuted. What a historic day. The potential for historic day, for its historic day, as long as everything goes okay. So we're that close to having a permanent, I don't know if it'll be permanent, but for at least a few years, we'll have a government office that investigates UFOs and looks into health related effects and maybe reverse engineering of craft we may have captured and exploited. So I saw it this morning. I got up, the dog who was here was howling because he missed his mommy, and I got up and saw that there was new news, and I read a summary of what was going on with the NDAA, and I was like, this is it? Really? This is the NDAA? There's nothing in it. And then somebody's like, no, that's the summary. I'm like, oh, okay. So I read it. I'm like, it's pretty good. I mean, it has a lot of things that the Gillibrand language is, a lot of that is in the final version. The one thing that's not in there, which I was disappointed in is the civilian side, where they would have, various civilian organizations involved. And that sucks. But I mean, as somebody told me recently, that we take what we can get. This is a pretty big deal. And Brian, I'll bring up Brian Bender's tweet later. He had something that was really encouraging. In the meantime, if you guys have any questions, I will take some. But I mean, a lot of this is new to me. As far as specific details, well, actually, it's not that new. It's basically the Gillibrand language, co-sponsored by Rubio and Gallego. That's what Douglas Dean Johnson's been covering this for a while. He called it the Gillibrand Rubio Gallego, so GAG, yeah. And I'm going to read his article because it's really good. I don't know if I'll read all of it, but you guys feel free to jump in. And if there's any issues with sound, let me know. I just need to pull up his article on a full page. And I did get some private messages basically saying this is a really good thing. We take what we can get. Christopher Mellon and Lou Elizondo have been breaking their ass, and other people behind the scenes. And they need to get credit for this. And of course, people are still questioning their motives. I'm not one of them. So let me share the article by Doug, and I'll go through it because it's really good. And if you're bored with me reading and you've already read it and need to leave, no problem. I understand. So he starts off, Congress tells the Pentagon and intelligence community UFOs are serious business. Congress appears poised to enact legislation that would command the military and intelligence agencies to get a grip on, quote, unidentified aerial phenomena, end quote, and authorizes the resources required. That's so important. Basically, you'll see. It's basically telling them you can get whatever resources you need to get this done. So that's really important. And as much as I'd rather this be civilian and somebody like Jeff Bezos or somebody, Elon Musk funding it, so we don't have the government involved, I'd love that, but we don't have that right now. So yes, this is a really good thing. And I see comments. So if you guys have questions, just let me know. Hello to everybody. Julian Bug, my cousin John, William, James Iandoli was here earlier. I don't know if he's still here, engaging the phenomenon. So I know some people have not read this because not everybody's on Twitter. So people who are on Twitter, you have to remember, there are a lot of people on YouTube to have no idea this is going on. It starts off, that's a Tic Tac graphic made by Dave Beatty that Dean put in his article to start out, which the Tic Tac case, which was investigated by OSAP, is a big reason why a lot of us are here. One of the best UFO cases in a long time, with all the witnesses. But let me get to the article. And Mr. David Haith has joined us. I don't know if I pronounced your name right, David. But anyway, so Dean's article is too good for me not to read, at least some of it. because there was stuff I didn't understand, and he clarified a lot. With the unveiling of today of legislative language already agreed on in negotiations between key lawmakers meeting privately, it is likely this has not been approved yet. It is likely that Congress will soon send the Department of Defense and intelligence community a set of emphatic statutory commands regarding UAP, or UFOs in common parlance. The content of the language agreed upon by, and I'll skip over some words to make it a little quicker. The language agreed upon by negotiators from the Senate and the House Armed Services Committees, being reported and analyzed in detail here for the first time anywhere. Yeah, Doug has done a really, really good job. Yes, happy birthday, 80th birthday to David. Amazing. I hope I get to 80. And when I get to 80, I'll be reading another article. A new office has been implemented, and we're getting close to finding out the truth. Hopefully not. You never know. As excited as I am for this, I don't have any, expectations that this is it. We are there. We are going to know the truth next year. We're hybrids, and the world is going to know. Yeah, I don't think that's happening. It's a slow process, as everybody's starting to see. Along the way, people are getting excited and thinking that all of a sudden the total truth, whatever that turns out to be, is going to be dropped on us. I would love for that. I just don't see it right now. I am the UFO scribe. I will speak as if I'm in the king's court, and I will become the jester. The UAP related provisions are included in the NDAA now being advanced under the bill designated blah, blah, blah. I will sometimes refer to the text as the GRG, Gillibrand Rubio Gallego. So skip that. So this is Doug's take. He goes, I read the unwritten message underlying the bill language, and I did invite him here. I don't know if he can make it. This is how Doug sees it. We, the Congress, have concluded that UAP are serious business. We want you to start treating it as serious business. Get your act together and get a grip on this problem. Expect to be held accountable. And let's hope that's what happens, because nothing works unless they hold them accountable. The DOD just does not treat this seriously, and nobody holds their feet to the fire. This is a waste of time. But the fact that Senator Gillibrand still surprises me. I don't know if it was whatever was said in the briefings that she was part of or her staff was part of. It was enough to convince her. That's one of the things. I'll try to play one of the older Heinrich comments, Senator Heinrich, because he was the most forthcoming on his opinion on what we're dealing with some of these UFOs. The measure incorporates a robust array of statutory provisions, in essence, commanding the DOD and intelligence community to substantially elevate the priority, coordination, and resources that they devote to investigations of UAP. The legislation describes the overarching mission in unmistakable terms, but also provides detailed mandates and funding authorities to advance UAP investigations. Two key parts: funding and investigations. If they do investigations, we're going to learn a lot of new things if they share that with us. Hopefully they will. That should not be classified. If we're not dealing with advanced tech that they want to reverse engineer, they should share that. That's why I think a lot of if they can get all of the privacy issues taken care of with OSAP, where a lot of the witnesses agree to go speak off the record, if they can get their names taken out, that stuff should be public. So the legislation describes the overarching mission in unmistakable terms, but also provides detailed mandates and funding authorities to advance UAP investigations and provisions to require a measure of periodic partial public disclosure of future findings. Yeah, how partial is the question? The negotiated NDAA has been packed into the shell of a numbered bill that has already passed the Senate, which may simplify the procedural steps in the Senate. Even so, a round or two of legislative ping pong might occur as the Senate and House work out a few remaining issues unrelated to UAP. This is important. It is not likely that the UAP language would be altered during such during such any ping pong. Congress has enacted an NDAA for the past 60 consecutive years. I think it's likely this NDAA, with its historic UAP related provisions, will become law before Christmas. So people were asking, yeah, when? Well, Doug thinks before Christmas, which would be a great early Christmas present for us. I think later on it says enacted. I think Halloween of 2022 is the deadline for it to be in place, the office. The new negotiated NDAA text contains most, but not all, of the major components of the Gillibrand-Rubio amendment. Senator Gillibrand, who sits on both the Armed Services and Intelligence Committees, introduced, and by the way, those are the two committees that Eric Davis briefed. I don't know what other briefings they received. I'm sure it wasn't just Eric Davis, but it was enough for her to write language. It was enough for either her or a staffer, whatever they heard, to write this language. So it was introduced November 4th, and Doug was the first to write about it, and he's written about it over the past few months. It's quickly co-sponsored by Senator Marco Rubio, who was active last year in the Senate and Select Intelligence Committee, putting the language in place where we finally had the UFO report June 25th of this year. Rubio was, commenting to TMZ and other places. He did interviews openly talking about this. Sometimes he was really conservative. Sometimes he let his guard down a little bit. So Gillibrand's proposal, you're welcome, Bug. Gillibrand's proposal built on and greatly upgraded a set of UAP-related mandates that had earlier been incorporated into the House version of the NDAA by Congressman Ruben Gallego of Arizona. So Gallego, yeah, he's another one who came out of the left field. Gallego is chairman of the House Armed Services Committee's Intelligence and Special Operations Subcommittee, a panel that had received a classified briefing from the UAP task force on June 17th, 2021. So I assume whatever he saw there convinced him to write that language. The bill sailed through the House of Reps without any challenge to Gallego's UAP language on September 23rd. And those are the three major players: Senator Gillibrand, Senator Rubio, and Congressman Ruben Gallego. The strongest elements of the Gillibrand-Rubio amendment survived closed-door House-Senate negotiation sessions, despite attempts by some elements of the Pentagon bureaucracy to derail them. The evil Pentagon bureaucracy. Was Susan Goff involved in that? Well, she's just a spokesperson, but I don't know how much power she has, but I wouldn't be surprised if she was kept up on all of that as it was proceeding. However, a provision that would have created here it is, a UAP advisory committee made up mostly of civilians was dropped during the negotiations. To my eye, the victim of Pentagon bureaucrats who privately but emphatically branded such an entity a security risk. So basically, they're like, no, you bring the civilian side in there, they don't have the proper clearances, stuff's going to leak. It's not, they get to share classified information. That was their argument, apparently, and they used that to their advantage. Maybe they should have not put it in the language and then brought it out later, but I don't know if they could have done that legally. I'm not sure how that works with language. If you can add something later on, I guess they'd have to vote on it. I'm not sure. Anyway, it was nixed. So no civilian, no SDU, Rich Hoffman, which really sucks. But like I said, we take what we can get for now. In addition, Gillibrand's effort to determine what the Pentagon's UAP office will be called, the most recent version, which was called Astro, was not adopted, leaving the nomenclature in the hands of the Secretary of Defense and his subordinates. I don't care what the name is. I mean, it would be nice if it was something I don't have to say OIA, AOI, MSG, something besides that. Something, it would be nice to have an acronym that rolls off our tongue, but that's the least of our concerns. While unfortunate, the rejection of the Civilian Advisory Committee and nomenclature provisions is greatly overshadowed by the sweeping, substantive provisions that the bill would enact into statutory law, binding on this and every future administration unless modified by Congress. So that's exciting. It won't be exciting until we get the first report, the first unclassified report, if this all takes place and gets, passed, and then we could see if we're really getting what they promised. All right. Enactment of this language would be unprecedented. Unprecedented. Congress has never before enacted any statutes that deal explicitly with UFOs or unidentified aerial phenomena. To the extent that various government agencies have dealt with UAP incidents or sought to manage public concerns about UAP, they have done so under their general operating authority, so they interpret them. In recent years, the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence has prodded the Pentagon and intelligence community with language in committee reports, but enactment of sweeping statutory mandates will elevate the subject matter of UAP into an entirely new realm. And guys, I could see the chat. So if anybody has any questions, doesn't even have to. It could be about anything. I'll interrupt what I'm reading because I'm just reading. Some of it really doesn't call for comment. It's pretty self-explanatory. And then Dean goes on to say, it's true, Senator Harry Reid with Senator Inouye and Stevens quietly secured $22 million to fund OSAP, but no public legislative text revealed the true character of that program. Only a handful of members of Congress even knew of its existence during that period. And it was originally supposed to go for 5 years, but it went for 2 because when they put in the request, and this is my take on, not take, it's just from reading Skinwalkers at the Pentagon, they put in a request to become a special access program, and that letter got leaked, and people found out about the program, and they said, what the hell are you investigating? Really? And that's where they ran into trouble, and certain people in the Pentagon tried to kill the program, and after 2 years, they succeeded. So, and he also talks about ATIP. He says, but that was a modest initiative pursued by a small group under the general authorities of the Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence, not dependent on any references in legislation. So yeah, this one is legislation. So is OSAP, but OSAP was just so quiet. OSAP. Frustrating. Some big YouTube channels say Skinwalker Rants is a grift. I've stopped paying attention, and I'll tell you exactly. I'll tell you why. Because, and And I know certain videos have been captured of UFOs. Let me try to get rid of. Sorry, I'm struggling getting rid of my screen for a second. So I was talking about this the other day, and I was working on a show. I don't know who Joe Scott is, Bug, but I was talking at work, and 2 new people I met brought up a conversation about UFOs. I snuck it in there, and then I think one of them may have brought up Skinwalker Ranch, and I was like, yeah, I mean, a lot of it is not captured on video. A lot of it it's anecdotal. But is there a point where it's so many stories of the same type of activity, slightly different, where you come to the conclusion, at least I have, that something is going on there, something weird. There are still people who think it's black technology, whatever. You want to make that argument, fine. Something is going on there. So it needs to be investigated. Same thing with some of the investigations that OSAP did. People will talk about certain orbs and like, well, we have that technology. Okay. Well, if we have technology that we're sending out and it's entering human beings and injuring and killing Americans, I think that needs to be studied. Just for argument's sake, it's black technology. How do you not study that? I mean, Kit Green, 25% of his patients died between 5 and 7 years after they have a close encounter. That should be studied no matter what. It would be a bigger scandal if that was black human technology by some rogue element of our government. I mean, that would be a huge deal. Skinwalker and the surrounding area, that's the most important part. It's not just Skinwalker Ranch, it's the whole area, and it's been going on for a long time. Other areas, other hotspots. So I don't even want to debate it with people anymore. It's a waste of time. I want to try to figure out what's going on, not that if it's going on. Yeah, it's very difficult to record. So many witnesses, Dr. Eric Davis, Travis Taylor, Brandon Fugel. There were 5 DIA folks. We don't know their names. There were 10 security folks. They all had hitchhiker type of stuff happen. Is every person lying? And then like I said, but then there are a lot of people who say, nope, it's all black tech. It's all black budget tech. And like I said, if we have technology that can cause hitchhiker effect, that's gone back, we've had that for a long time, and we can, if that's what it is, amazing, amazing to me. I don't think that's what's going on, but I've talked about that before. Yeah, and I'm just saying Black Project just for the sake of argument. I'm not saying it's impossible that some of it may be black technology, but injuring people at the very least, it has to be studied, whatever it is. So, you know, I'm not gonna get into a big debate with somebody over what it is. If they're like, nope, sorry. If they just say there's nothing going on, I just don't pay attention. It's just a waste of time. There's something going on. I just want to figure out what it is. So let me continue with Doug's article. It appears many members of Congress who sit on the committees that have had access to classified briefings on UAP since 2017 have concluded that the DoD and intelligence community have dealt with the issue in a haphazard fashion. Yes, without institutional continuity or the marshaling of substantial resources. They are determined to change that. In September 25th, I'll get back to that. Um, just one quick. I don't know of the place, and I may have heard the interview with somebody on Middle Tennessee. There's a place I don't know the name of it. There are other places in the United States: Yakima, Washington; Sedona, Arizona; Crestone, Colorado; Dulce, New Mexico. So there are a lot of places. Why those places? I mean, is that an area? And I know there are Native American connections too, not to everything, but a lot of them. So yeah, and there's also a Skinwalker type place over in Europe. I'm not sure if there's just one, so it's everywhere. All right, let me get back. In a September 25th, 21 interview with Bender from Politico, Gallego said there's been and I'm sure I saw this, but I don't remember this, but it's really good from Gallego saying there's been a total lack of focus across the national security apparatus to actually get at what's happening here regarding the UAP. I think there's been kind of a partial pastime of curiosity seekers that are within the Department of Defense, but there has not been any professional initiative across the defense enterprise. So that we can actually make some deliberate and knowledgeable decisions. I mean, that's yeah, exactly. Um, and Gallego expanded on those themes in a video interview, saying, speaking of what he sees as a failure of the military and intelligence communities to bring coordinated and sustained scrutiny to bear on the UFO program, Gallego said, I think actually more than anything else, it's cultural because we've never treated UAPs as a serious issue. No person wants to be known as the UFO general, right? Or maybe the person who is the director of UFO information, because that basically sets your career path in the military. And so everyone just avoids it. Everyone just avoids the issue. Politicians avoid the issue. So everyone just kind of walks around in circles saying, man, there's something here, but nobody wants to do anything about it. That last part is exactly the point. Something's here, but nobody's doing anything about it. Of course, I do think somebody has been doing something about it, except we don't have access to that. And that's something we can talk about as far as what's been going on in decades past. I'll just see what other Pine Bush, New York, Whitley Strieber's cabin. I think was that near there, Hudson Valley. I'm not, but there are people who think Hudson Valley sightings were Black Triangle were ours. Is there a dollar amount associated? No, there's not a dollar amount associated. It just says basically you get the funds you need. I mean, it doesn't specify, which we'll see. If people are asking for funds and saying we're not getting enough funds, that's going to be an issue. If the Pentagon doesn't think there's anything to the whole UAP phenomena, why are they freaking out about civilian oversight? Hypocritical. I guess they can make the argument, well, it's adversarial tech that we need to figure out, and we don't want civilians finding out about that. That's national security. I'm sure that's what they could say. So whether or not that's a valid argument, I don't know, but hopefully eventually we can get civilians. I mean, it bugs me. It definitely bugs me that civilians aren't included, but I'm not going to be negative on a day where this is a big step forward. It's not the final step whatsoever. It's a big step forward though. In November, let me get rid of that. In November, in an interview with Brian Benner, Gillibrand said, you're talking about drone technology, you're talking about balloon technology, you're talking about other aerial phenomena, and then you're talking about the unknown. Regardless of where you fall on the question of the unknown, You have to answer the rest of the questions. That's why this is urgent. That's why having no oversight or accountability up until now, to me, is unacceptable. And I'm not sure um, if she's referring to especially the special access programs that don't have any oversight, where nobody in the government, unless maybe if you're the Secretary of Defense, you can get access to a certain special access program that might have UFO technology. That how do you have a government without no oversight? So I'm not sure if that's what she's talking about, or other aspects of UFO data that exist that nobody has access to. Um, and that was her tweet that she sent out. We cannot bury our hands, and talking about her proposal. See you, Mick. I see you. The proposed new law would radically change the statutory terrain on which the DoD and intelligence agencies IC, I'll keep saying IC if he goes over that, operate with respect to UAP. By enactment, Congress would clearly set forth explicit statutory mandates and place accountability for carrying them out squarely on the shoulders of the Secretary of Defense, known as Secretary going forward, shared in some measure with another cabinet level officer, the Director of National Intelligence, Avril Haines, who talked about we may be dealing with something that comes extraterrestrially, which, according to Julian Barnes of the New York Times, she was just not talking about aliens from outer space. She was talking about solar flares and meteors. And Dean has an update on that at the end of this article. I don't know if we'll go that far. He stands by his reporting, but won't say where that came from, which I don't know. It seems like you would, at least as a reporter, tell us where you got that information. Hi, Julie. The Gillibrand Rubio Gallego text tells the secretary, in coordination with the DNI, to establish an entity devoted to coordinating department and IC efforts to gather data on, study the mysteries of UAP. The bill does not, and this is a little worrisome, the bill does not dictate exactly where this coordinating office must be located, but specifies that it must be within a component of the Office of the Secretary of Defense or within a joint organization of the Department of Defense and the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. We now know that for the present, at least, the UAP headquarters will be unfortunately named the AIOMSG. Actually, he got it wrong on the acronym. It's Airborne Object Identification and Management Synchronization Group, AOI MSG, within the Office of the Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence and Security. That's the office we don't want it to be in because of their history of obfuscating this subject and not taking it seriously, at least publicly. It'll be in that office because Deputy Secretary of Defense Kathleen Hicks announced creation of that entity in a memorandum released November 23rd. Hicks memo. Proposed new law would not directly govern the UAP-related activity of agencies outside the defense intelligence community realm, such as Homeland Security, NASA, or the FAA, but it would require active efforts by folks in the DoD and intelligence community to collaborate with them, such folks as NASA and DHS and FAA, and seek UAP-related data from such agencies. Hey, NASA, we would like your UFO data, please, on my desk by tomorrow. So that's what that's what they can do, that office. Among the functions of the central UAP office would be the following: developing procedures to synchronize and standardize the collection, reporting, and analysis of incidents, including adverse physiological effects regarding UFOs across the DoD and intelligence community. And that's the most important part that made it in. Two parts. They'll be studying individual cases. They'll be able to travel to where there was a sighting or an encounter, and then if somebody had something physically wrong with them because they were so close to a UFO, then they study that. The big question I have, which is not discussed here, as what Colin Keller has said, the only way Colin Keller, and this is James, Colin Keller told me something about NASA a while back, very strange. When I go back, I can go back. Can you share that, James? So that's James teasing us something very strange from Colin Kelleher about NASA. If you can't, that's fine. NASA gossip. I will keep reading as I'm looking at that. So Colin Kelleher said the reason they were able to get folks to open up about their experiences, first of all, they had regarding NASA and Gary Nolan. Um, yeah, if you want to share details, please do. If not, I will keep reading. So Colin Kelleher said they had medical doctors, physicians who were looking at some of the folks who were injured by the UAP, close encounters, and they stayed with them and they took blood work and they looked all matter of medical diagnosis, MRIs, and they stayed with them. He said sometimes months, sometimes years. He goes, and once they became comfortable with the people who were investigating their case, then they would start sharing some of the more controversial things like hitchhiker effects, poltergeist. Because if somebody comes to your house and says, you know, depending on who you are, of course, you might be more reticent if you're a military person, especially if you're a pilot. Oh yeah, well, got home and then woke up last night and there was this black shadow figure over my house, over my bed, and you know, poltergeist activity, glasses flying around downstairs. If you're in the military or if you're a pilot, you're not going to share that. And he's basically saying no matter who you are, the more time they spent with the witnesses, the more they were more open about it. So James is saying, Dr. Nolan and my associates have made many new discoveries. I am retired from the media, but still search for the truth. One day soon, teamed up with NASA, much will be revealed. And that was from, who told you that? That was from Tom Kelleher told him that. Colin Kelleher told James that Dr. Nolan and my associates have made many new discoveries. I am retired from the media, but still search for the truth. One day soon, teamed up with NASA, much would be revealed. Well, that's a really good tease, and I want to know what the hell that is. Yeah, thanks for sharing that, James. Had never heard anything like that. I have an exclusive thanks to James Iandoli. Thank you very much for sharing that. That's really interesting. I have no idea. What does NASA know? I mean, you see the pictures that Uri Geller, and I know people have problems with Uri Geller, but I have no doubt that Uri Geller has real abilities. I also know that people who have real abilities sometimes don't have those real abilities and they'll cheat if they get a chance. I'm not, I've seen video of him. But Geller posted pictures of him with Werner von Braun at NASA and claiming that he saw the bodies, but he wouldn't go into details. So, and just for sharing that, James gets kisses. Back to the article. Among the functions of the Central UAP office would be not kisses. Would be following development. I read that already. So evaluating links between, they got the adversarial foreign governments, which we don't care about, and non-state actors, terrorist groups. Maybe some of this is their technology. Okay, that's not what we care about. Drones, which look, super advanced. Coordinating with other departments and agencies of the federal government as appropriate. They will coordinate with FAA, NASA. Did I read this already? I might have read this already. So, or it might just be repetitive. While the central office would exercise oversight authority and play a coordination function, key provisions require the Secretary of Defense and DNI to designate line organizations. Basically, they'll designate certain military and or intelligence components to conduct the operational aspects of UAP investigations. That could be, hopefully it's not the Air Force in charge of this, but hopefully they pick somebody and they put somebody in charge who is open-minded and willing to share. As obviously it's not going to be that person who's going to be sharing it, but hopefully they take this seriously. It requires that these organizations, these line organizations that'll be designated, to carry out the investigations, they will have to have access. This is important, to adequate personnel with requisite expertise, equipment, transportation, and other. You must have a car. If you're going to work in the UFO office, it is a prerequisite that you have a car. If not, you can't work for us. It's like, that's kind of weird. It's like, yes, make sure they have. I know it's not real. I'm reading that the wrong way. Transportation provided by the government and other sources necessary to respond rapidly to incidents, because you don't want to be taking the bus to a UFO sighting. And if you miss the bus, you're in trouble. So this is exciting. Other resources necessary to respond rapidly to incidents or patterns of observations. And that's OSAP, basically. That is OSAP. Get there as fast as you can, especially if they're cattle mutilations. I'm not sure if they're going to cover cattle mutilations. I guess if somebody's also involved and they get injured, I'm not sure. That would be a good question to ask whoever gets put in charge of this program. The GRG text also requires the director of the Pentagon UAP office to supervise development of a science plan to develop and test, as practicable, scientific theories to account for characteristics and performance of unidentified aerial phenomena that exceed the known state of the art in science or technology, including in the areas of propulsion, aerodynamic control, signatures, structures, materials, sensors, countermeasures, weapons, electronics, and power generations. And most importantly, to try to replicate any such advanced characteristics and performance, basically reverse engineer whatever technology we're seeing, which I'm sure no doubt has been going on. And we're kind of reinventing the wheel here. I realize we're reinventing the wheel with a lot of stuff. But that's where we are right now. So play the hand we're dealt. And they also want to provide the foundation for potential future investments to replicate any such advanced characteristics and technology. The UFO that Tom DeLonge talked about, they're going to replicate that. And I will not be alive for that unless they already have it. I think Hal Puthoff said maybe 50 to 100 years we get that technology. Rapid mobilization team. Yes. And it's exciting. I'm just going to stop here and just the Wu train is not full, but it'll get more full as time goes on, as more people are open-minded to the side effects of having a close encounter. Put it that way. I did not know he said he had an early team like that, James. I did not know that. But it's a good thing, and we need it. Hopefully it actually plays out the way it reads. Now, let's see. This is one of my favorite parts is at the end of this paragraph. The language mandates the secretary and the DNI shall ensure that each element of the IC with data related to unidentified UAP make such data available immediately to the UAP office. In theory, that's amazing if it happens. Doesn't mean we're going to see it. To help enforce that decree, the bill requires that at least twice a year, the chairman and vice chairman of ranking member of the Committee on Armed Services and Select Committee on Intelligence of the Senate and Committee on Armed Services and Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence of the House shall receive an enumeration of any instances in which data related to UAP was denied to the office because of classification restrictions on that data or for any other reason. So basically, I'm sorry, sir, you cannot have our UFO access, our UFO data because you don't have the proper clearances to see it. That's one way that they would not be able to get it. And if that's the case, that they need to go back to those folks and say, hey, they're not giving us the information because they say, I don't have the proper clearance. Or the second reason, or for any other reason. So it could be, I'm sorry, but UFOs are demonic and I'm not going to give you access to this data because I don't want to give access to the demons. I don't want to give access to our world. I don't want to get demons. I don't want to give demons access to our world. I'm just using that because we know there are people in the Pentagon who think like that. Whatever the case, I would like, there's so many questions. If certain things were denied, will they tell us why they were denied? I mean, is it classified to say, well, we were turned down because I'm not on some bigot list for a special access program. And that's why we weren't able to get in and we can't find anybody who's on the bigot list. So we're kind of at a standstill right now. Are they going to share that kind of information? I don't see why not. It's not classified to say that. You're not telling us what program it is or what data you're not being shared. But still, I mean, I know it's probably not going to happen. They're probably not going to tell us that they were denied access. But that's potentially, that can open doors if they could figure out a way to get beyond, private contractors. If they have a craft or pieces of a craft, they need to figure out a way to get past. Well, I'm sorry, we're private. You have no say in our matter, and it's a special access program. So there's government involvement. Somebody told me privately, they're like, there is government funding. So yes, there should be access and oversight. Importantly, let me see any questions. A lot of denied data. I'm sure there's going to be. Yeah. And I'll definitely pull up that part of the video later and put it on Twitter, what James said about Kelleher and Nolan and NASA. Importantly, the GRG text, I don't need to be on here. The GRG text contains what I call a right to report provision, which says this is important too. There's some really great stuff in here. It says the mechanisms must be provided by which military and civilian personnel associated with the military or the IC, including contractor personnel, can report UAP related events, including adverse physiological effects, directly to the UAP office. There has to be stuff in place where if I'm hurt by a UFO and I'm working for the government or the intel community, I'm working for a contractor and I get hurt, I should be able to go right to that office and tell them about what happened and not worry about stigma or fear of ridicule coming back on me or me losing my job. Pilots are another case. I can't see it. I know it's easy to say to a pilot, you need to just go forward. You're not going to lose your flight status. And then the pilot goes forth and says, well, I saw a wolf in the backyard last night and it was standing on two legs. And it was smoking, and nothing like that was in OSAP. But if you read Hunt for the Skinwalker, there were smoking dogs in trench coats, which is so ridiculous. If you're a pilot, you're not going to share that story. I don't care what office is in place, but the fact that that office is going to be in place is really, really important, and that's a really important part of this legislation, this language. So it says. Dean writes, the provision is clearly intended to curb stigma and fear of ridicule or disapproval that have for so long inhabited pilots and other military personnel from reporting UAP encounters, and that in some cases may have prevented even extraordinary encounters from being passed up the chain of command. Because we really haven't made a formal process to this, a lot of military men and women just don't want to say anything because they're afraid that it will affect their career, Congressman Gallego observed on the 14th. So we have information bias happening right now. The people that probably have more information are afraid to talk. And then even if they do talk, the information goes nowhere. Great comments from Gallego. And I'm sure I've read or heard this before, but it's good to read it again. Gives me hope that sometime in the next few decades that we're going to get some answers, at least data that provides more questions that we need to answer. Let's see. No, I've heard about it, Mule. I haven't had a chance to read it. That doesn't, I mean, I don't know why you would say that, because I do think we have, I don't know, but I think we have black technology. I mean, read my Will Miller interview. Will Miller is a pretty smart guy. He was in contact with, he worked in several special access programs, which he told me. So we already may have, craft that can defeat gravity. But then you have somebody like Eric Davis is like, nope, we have not. So good luck with your show. The SETI-loving trolls were thick on Martin Willis' show, denying everything about UAP phenomena and John Ramirez. Yeah, I have not commented about John Ramirez yet, and I don't think John is lying about his CIA background. I just don't know about I don't know about what he's talking about, his experiences. So, but I was supposed to be on Martin's show last year. I was on once, and then I was supposed to be on again. And we were going to talk Wilson Davis, and then he canceled without telling me, because I was telling him, I'm like, Martin, the New York Times is doing an article on crash retrievals. I think Wilson Davis may be part of that. And he was like, I talked to Leslie. There's no article. I'm like, there's an article. You can trust me. And then he canceled me and didn't tell me about it until 5 minutes before the show. I'm like, where's the link? I still like Martin. I still like his show. Yeah, I don't know how the votes happen. Doesn't seem like it's publicly. And then Biden signs it. I don't think that's an issue once it goes through. But Dean said around Christmas, before Christmas, we should get it finalized. I'm not sure if he covers exactly all of those details in here. And James says, I think we have black tech too, even if modest. Yeah, I really don't know. It's like, I won't argue with somebody vehemently about it, but I mean, James knows Will Miller too. And Will's a smart guy. And you look at his letter to Eric Davis, he was going to put Hal Puthoff and Eric Davis in contact with certain people that knew about crash retrievals and things like that. But I don't know. That other article, yes, I have not read it yet. I know about it. I think, is that the one in the debrief? Is that the one you're talking about? That article? Sonny, written by the guy, Sonny is his first name. If it is, then yes, somebody behind the scenes told me, pay attention to that. That's an interesting article. And the claims within it. I just need to read it first. Assuming that's what you're talking about. Yes, the debrief article. So yeah, I have not read it yet. I will read it. I'll try to read it tonight. Yeah, it's an exciting times. I mean, maybe somewhere in the black world they've already done that, I don't know. I'm open-minded to it though. Julie read it. I have not read it. Julie's showing off. Thanks, Julie. No, but it's on my list. Yeah, Erica, I disagree with Erica on Skinwalker. She thinks that Skinwalker I think she thinks it's military, all of it. And I heard that Diana pushed back on that. I mean, there's possibilities that some of it is military. I mean, but it doesn't seem like the technology has progressed. People have had similar experiences since the mid-90s up until now. So it's like, why is the military still testing the same exact technology? I don't think it's military. I can't prove it. Something's going on at Skinwalker that's anomalous, whether or not it's black technology. I mean, Hey, Michael, how you doing? Michael at Troubled Minds does a show every night, at least 5 nights a week, Michael. Yeah, I have not read that. There's so many things I have not read. And Skinwalker and the whole basin has a history. And it's not just Skinwalker, but I mean, people can make the argument all day long that it's black technology, and I can't prove it. You just have to go back to the cases that, at least UFO-wise, cases that go back to the 30s, allegedly, and that kind of stuff. I don't think we had that technology, but I'm open to being proven wrong. I just don't give it a high probability of us having that kind of technology that long ago. Erica frustrates you. Yeah, Erica has really done some really great shows, great interviews. I just disagree with her a lot. But she's not the only one that thinks along those lines. So it's not just her. Let me get back to Dean, unless I'll keep an eye on questions. Another important provision. This is important. The bill removes any ambiguity about whether expending substantial funds for UAP investigations is authorized by Congress, because the bill explicitly authorizes, and somebody asked about money earlier, quote, to be appropriated such sums as may be necessary to carry out the work of the UAP office. That seems like it's an open, unlimited checkbook, including with respect to 1, general intelligence gathering and intelligence analysis, and 2, strategic defense, space defense, defense of controlled airspace, defense of ground, air, or naval assets, and related purposes. And people are going to read that and say, defense and money. See, it was a money grab the entire time. Time will tell. Let's see what kind of investigations they do. I'm going to pull up the Martin Heinrich quote that I have, which it's just a great interview he did before I read. And I think that's what Dean is referring to, Senator Martin Heinrich. And by the way, I heard from one of my representatives that I called regarding the Gillibrand Amendment. I'm going to pull this up so you guys can hear this. Hopefully you should be able to hear this. Let me just give one more time. So I contacted both my representatives, but let me play this. Tell me if you have any sound issues, let me know. This was my favorite interview. This is a senator who sits on the Senate Select Intelligence Committee.
What do you think about all this UFO stuff going on right now?
I think we need to get to the bottom of it. It's pretty intriguing. I don't know what it is, but anytime You have legitimate pilots describing something that doesn't seem to conform to the laws of physics that govern aviation and is in U.S. airspace. I think it's something we need to get to the bottom of.
Right, but like they always say, the conspiracies at Roswell, there's a lot of alien bodies in there. Anything like can you tell me the truth? You're on the Intel committee. Is there anything in there?
All I can say is I've never seen the bodies in Roswell.
Bigger thing to worry about if it's a foreign government or if it's aliens.
Oh, option B, much bigger thing to worry
You think
about.
the aliens would be worse?
I cannot imagine if we have if there is a foreign government that had these kinds of capabilities. I think we would see other indications of advanced technology. I can't imagine that what has been described or shown in some of the videos is of belongs to any government that I'm aware of. I'm not really a betting man, but the way these things operate, they certainly, you wouldn't want a human being or any living creature in something that moves that fast and changes direction that quickly. So like I said, I have no idea what it is, but I think we should figure it out.
Were you guys able to hear the sound from the video? Basically, I was saying, yeah, I was muted. Thanks. Basically, I was saying that's really a really great interview with Heinrich, saying that doesn't think it belongs to a foreign adversary, and the way it moves and the speed. I want to know what videos he saw, and as I've said before, they should be able to share what they've seen on those videos because it's classified, but it does not give away sources and methods. If you say, you should have seen the video I saw today, it was this object and it just darted all over the place and just made these 90-degree turns. It was white. There's no reason why they can't say that. So that is my opinion, and I would like to ask somebody to ask Lou if that's a valid opinion. Now I need to finish up reading more of Doug's article, and I'll keep an eye on questions. So that was, see, he goes over the Heinrich comments. Recently, Heinrich told the Albuquerque Journal, the American people deserve transparency when it comes to UAPs, especially given the national security implications. We need to elevate this issue within our defense and intelligence agencies so they have the mandate to focus not only on what is happening in our skies, but also on relaying these findings to the American people, ending the previous cycle of sweeping these sightings under the rug. And then he goes over the TMZ comments, saying, I can't imagine that belongs to any government I'm aware of. I mean, that's the strongest comment you're going to see. And the Gallego language passed the House in September. That would have required the Pentagon office to provide quarterly reports to certain designated congressional committees, but nothing to require unclassified reports. What I would love to have had to incorporate the quarterly reports that included unclassified reports. 4 times a year is not asking for too much. I think right now it's just once or twice. I mean, that's not enough to me. Likewise, modest UAP relation provisions contained in the Intelligence Authorization Act bills approved by the Senate and House earlier this year provided only future classified UAP reports to the Senate and House committees on armed services. Irrelevant at this point. In contrast, the GRG text requires the UAP office to issue annual, so it's annual unclassified reports on UAP, which is like once a year. Not enough. We'll take it for now, but it's not enough. And 8 congressional committees will receive longer classified versions of these reports. And 6 of those panels will receive classified briefings at least twice a year. So unless the phenomenon ups its game, we may be in a holding pattern for a while if we're just, getting a unclassified report once a year. Congressman Gallego's House passed provision required the UAP reports to cover at least 7 designated topics. The GRG text contains all 7 and also 3 additional categories drawn from GRG. This is the big one. For me, it's not, obviously there are a lot of big ones with, your health. Health-related effects are huge and a place where they can go report their sightings and encounters without feeling stigma. But then it includes any efforts underway on the ability to capture or exploit discovered unidentified aerial phenomena, which is crash retrievals. Like I said, I don't know how they're going to get into these waived, unacknowledged special access programs, but at least the language is in there, so it's a start. And also it's going to include, as we said, an assessment of any health-related effects for individuals that have encountered identified aerial phenomena, UAP, and descriptions of UAP incidents associated with nuclear weapons, important, and nuclear-powered craft or domestic nuclear facilities. And then he just shows the language of which I have in my blog. I copied and pasted and just went through all of it and made it look nice, which was a pain in the neck because it has numbers. The whole thing is numbered. So that took a little bit, but that's on my blog, ufojoe.net. And who will be in charge? This was new information to me because I know about Austin and Haynes, but that's Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin and Deputy Secretary of Defense Kathleen Hicks. That's not Haynes. That's Hicks. Some of this stuff starts to get wordy. Will Miller also said, I'm looking. Yeah, and that's, as I said in a recent live stream, I asked Will Miller about access to those programs back in 2000, 21 years ago, and he said I would contact my Attorney General, Joe. And I'm like, okay. It's like 21 years ago, it was being discussed because he was speaking about programs that did not have oversight. And there are certain people that I think Will thinks it's illegal without oversight, but then you have other people say, no, it's legal. The way they do it is legal. So I don't know. If it's illegal, that would be another story because they can create, I don't know if they even need to create a law to get access to an illegal program. So the GRG text places authority and accountability for this whole thing on the Secretary of Defense, shared to a degree with Avril Haines, Director of National Intelligence, and the bill's mandates will require substantial involvement by multiple military and IC components and substantial resources. However, and this is the problem, it doesn't dictate where the office will be placed by the Secretary of Defense. Must place it in an administrator oversight function. It doesn't say where it's going to be placed, where the oversight will come from. But in the immediate future, Dean says the central entity will reside within the office of the Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence and Security, which is where Lou and Chris Mellon have said we do not want it to be. We know this because Kathleen Hicks issued a memorandum directing the Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence and Security to create the AOI MSG. There's nothing in the bill that would force the Secretary of Defense to change that placement, although there's also nothing to prevent any secretary from moving the UAP nexus somewhere else if he, in consultation with the DNI, decide that is warranted. So that's really important that we cannot forget about. I'm not sure how we can have an effect on that. We need to hear from Dean, and we need to hear from Lou. We need to hear from Christopher Mellon, So that's how we find out, because I'm not smart enough to know how this works, to know how we force change and force them to not put it in, that office where they're talking about it right now that Lou and Mellon said it should not reside. There's nothing in the bill. So I said that's the language. Hicks' memo was released to the news media as congressional negotiators. Yeah, Dean was saying he thought it was purposely intended to undercut the Gillibrand Rubio amendment that was going on and negotiations. And speaking of that, let me take a break from this. I want to look at, if I can find it, I want to look at, there's a really important, and I've heard stuff from behind the scenes that there's stuff going on without getting specific related to this. Things are changing. More people are getting access to data. I'll put it that way. So that's a good thing. More people are taking this seriously. Dean will not be joining us. He is too busy. And the Brian Bender tweet, I don't know if you guys saw this, Brian Bender. If you're on Twitter, you saw it. If you're not on Twitter, you did not see it. And I know a lot of people who are not on Twitter are on YouTube. So let me read what Brian Bender said. This is important. And I won't pull it up. I'll just say, he said, Bender tweeted, I had a conversation last weekend with an official in the Pentagon who is about as senior as they come. And he said, this is an issue that is higher than ever on the radar, and there will be little room to obfuscate anymore. So that's exciting because Bender's usually conservative. So it's a Pentagon official who is about as senior as they come. Don't know who that is. But that's encouraging. Let me go back. Any questions? I'll just go through some of these. Only way some truth will find out, and only a minuscule amount will be found through private funding. Yeah, I agree. I don't know if private funding is going to get us access to the special access programs, but we can get access to the data at least. It could be a really long wait. I know people who think they listen to John Ramirez and they think that disclosure is around the corner. I mean, they're going to be talking about hybrids and the information is being okayed. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that's going on. It doesn't appear to be the case. It appears we're going very, very slow. And I'm not saying we are hybrids. I'm just saying whatever the true story is, it's going to take a long time, I think. But I could be 100% wrong. Yeah, getting access to a SAP is going to be difficult. So I do not have the answers, any of that. I don't know how we're going to get access, but at least, like I said, at least the language is in there. How far back in time are they going to be allowed to report? They talk about some of that, not specifically in the language I will get back to. It does come up. Just talking about stuff that they had not been briefed on. I don't know if this specific stuff's going to go back to 47 or 45, whatever, with Trinity. But if they're talking about exploitation, any programs that are going on, that will come up eventually if somebody gets access to it. I don't think it's, I've heard stuff behind the scenes. I don't think it's as nefarious as people, and I use that word a lot. I don't think it's nefarious a lot as far as how it's being kept. I just think the way the system was set up and the way it was changed, and it just makes it so difficult to get access. But information does come out. If you listen to Eric Davis's interviews, which I transcribed some of the relevant parts, he talks about how he got information from those programs by being in a special access program that dealt with UFOs and meeting other people who were in other programs that dealt with UFOs, and they shared information. That's how you find out. It doesn't mean he had access to those programs. That's another story, but the information can be shared and has been shared, according to Eric. So there are 6 undersecretaries of defense report directly to the Secretary of Defense, Deputy Secretary of Defense. This stuff gets a little boring. I'm going to skip over this. The charts of who's under who. The current Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence and Security is Ronald Moultrie, longtime public servant. So public servants are more likely, I'm not saying he does, but public servants are more likely to have access to certain special access programs because they're not politicians. They're not appointed. They don't leave the job every 2 years. The lifelong public servants are the folks I forget the wording that Will Miller used to describe it, or Stephen Greer. There's a word. But yeah, the folks that are in for a long period of time, those are the folks that get access to some of these programs. I'm not saying that he's one of them. So let's see any questions so we don't get bored with just reading. Yeah, I did not catch Dolan's show, and Twitter is a joy. But I've told people if you want to go on Twitter and not deal with, it's been good lately, but because some of the people have gone to Discord, which is fine. Go to Discord. I mean, we've been accused, certain people on Twitter have been accused of not being able to handle an opposing viewpoint, which is not true. It's just, I just want you to back up some of your claims. And, people are still claiming that I know Lou and Chris are part of a psyop. And it's like, people say you want to live in an echo chamber and only listen to people who you agree with. It's not true. It's just, I want to focus more on what we're dealing with. Not that I can figure it out, but I don't want to spend all day long trying to debate, there are people, it was Dave Felch on Twitter yesterday saying, he doesn't trust anything Lou says. I'm like, okay, I'm not going to spend time on that. So yeah, it's a snail pace of what we're at, but there are bursts of progress. I mean, I don't see this as a burst. This is a big deal, but it took a while to get to this point for this language. NASA email. I can't look at it right this second, although I could read it on the air, but let me get to if you have any questions, like I said, about anything, let me know. I will try to see what John has on his site about NASA. I mean, I know he had something recently that NASA was the UAP, and there was something about NASA. I did not get to read it. It was on Reddit. It's probably what it was. Somebody on Reddit had this, the UAP related emails, which I can bring up. Let me just bring up the page, but I don't know what it says. Let's see, share. So that's his article. And I saw this on Reddit yesterday, but I didn't get a chance to read it. NASA communications. Let's see. So they came through the FOIA. Oh, it's a video. Darn it. All right. I thought it was documents. I'm not going to play his video. That's not right to play somebody's video. I mean, the videos I usually play are older videos. I'm not going to play his video and take away from views and that stuff. And somebody's done work on it. I'll have to check it out later. And let's see. Lazar and Twitter, not a good mix. And Dean took a shot at Lazar. Yeah, Mule. There are ways though you can be on Twitter. Well, I guess if you want to just be open and talk about whatever you want, then it doesn't matter. People are going to take shots. I mean, and I am in the middle I am in the middle on Lazar. And I think it was last year when I got too excited and I thought we were going to get access to the intact craft and the special access program, and I wanted to bet on that, and I'm glad I didn't. And I thought that Lazar, we were going to find the truth about Lazar, and I started leaning a lot more towards him being truthful. But I don't know, people know who read my article. I was pretty 50-50. Eric Davis is 100% against him. John Alexander 100% against him. Dean Johnson, who's written this article, 100% against Lazar. You have Corbell and Knapp, who support Lazar. So I don't know. And it's not a question of me, if I'm friends with Knapp or Corbell, I'm not afraid to say I don't believe Lazar. If I don't believe him and I'm 100% convinced, I'll say so. Those guys do not take offense to that, despite what some may think. Thanks for being here, James. But yeah, Lazar is a red herring right now as far as this. I mean, obviously, if we have 9 craft, and Doug Johnson, who wrote the article, Douglas Dean Johnson wrote the article. He brought up Lazar, which I did not think he needed to do. And I think his response was, well, if Lazar's telling the truth and there are 9 craft, then this is all a facade. This is all, why are we wasting our time? Well, because we can't, whatever craft we may or may not have, we have no access to it. So it doesn't really matter. So we have to do this. Yes, a lot of people, certain people in the government, certain people know a hell of a lot more, but we don't have access to it. So we have to do this. It seems like we're starting from scratch, but at least now, whatever technology, whatever data was collected over the decades, we have more advanced technology. So it's going to be different data that we do not have, but still, it is like starting from scratch if we're not getting access to that data in the data warehouse that Eric Davis talked about, that Jeremy Corbell talked about, and they're not talking about the OSAP data warehouse that Jacques Vallée helped create. It's something different. So yeah, it's hard to bring up. It's really hard to bring up Lazar, and then people bring up he's a felon, and like, Eric brings it up too. So I try not to talk about it too much. I don't know if Lazar has helped move the conversation forward. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know about that. I think I'm waiting to see what kind of media coverage comes from this story. But I don't know if we're gonna have to wait. We're gonna have to wait until this becomes law and it's passed 100% and it gets signed into law. Then maybe we'll get the massive coverage. I don't know. I would think so. The AOI MSG got some decent coverage. This has not gotten coverage. Let's see. So, given the Undersecretary, Moultrie is the senior intelligence advisor to Secretary of Defense Austin. He may pass off this oversight to his deputy David M. Taylor, who may play a more direct role in supervising the AOI MSG, which I hope we get rid of that. So Taylor is a member of the Senior Executive Services, which is with a civilian rank equivalent to a 2-star general, which is interesting. He's been at OUSD since 2010. He actually ran it for the first 4 months of the Biden administration before Moultrie was confirmed. He also served in the Navy for 30 years as a flight officer. His final Navy assignment was as Chief of Staff for the Carrier Strike Group 11 aboard the aircraft carrier USS Nimitz, an assignment that he received in earlier 2008. So I wonder if he was on there in 2008, if the Tic Tac story was still being talked about, and if he knows about that at all. It would be interesting. When he left the Navy, he had the rank of captain. And he worked for Northrop Grumman Aerospace before joining OUSD. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. This is a really, really long article. This is basically now the civilian committee. Dean says, and it was supposed to be the SCU, this Scientific Coalition for Ufology, studying ufology, and the Galileo with Avi Loeb. That was going to be part of that committee. So Dean talks about how it was dropped by the House Senate negotiators. And he thinks it's because folks in the intel world were saying, that would be a security risk. Get rid of it. But as Dean says, the Gillibrand-Rubio amendment specifically said that every member of that committee would have a secret clearance. They must qualify for a secret clearance. So that, they would have been bound by classification laws, include stringent criminal penalties for violations. So, but Dean says he doesn't have a smoking gun to prove that's why they took that out of the bill. He goes, but the gunpowder is strong. I'm betting there's one laying around somewhere. So and I've heard similar too. Also, among some of those in government and media who are sympathetic to forward-leaning UAP investigations, I perceive a wariness towards. This is where he gets into Lazar. They're wary to work with civilian UFO folks because Bob Lazar and evil Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp. It's ridiculous to bring that up. I'm sorry. It's just not. I don't see that stuff talked about that much. I understand his point, but ufology has a problem. But yeah. I don't even want to talk about Lazar. I don't think it has a place in this. What I heard was, I think Dean's first comment about it, them thinking it's a classified issue. All these civilians are going to share classified information. I think that makes more sense. Here we go. The scope of the term. So under the House, under the House bill, it was only UAP was only going to be objects witnessed by a pilot or air crew member that are not immediately identifiable. Under that definition, a giant glowing disc entering a sea next to a surface submarine or hovering over a Minuteman III silo would not have constituted UAP. But under Gillibrand, Rubio, Gallego, UAP would be unidentified airborne objects, transmedium objects, from space to the atmosphere to water, vice versa, and submerged objects or devices that are not immediately identifiable and that display behavior, performance characteristics suggesting that they may be related to unidentified aerial or transmedium objects. So that covers a lot of stuff. Thank God they got rid of the original House language. And then he talks about how the legislation took place, which is, for most people don't want to hear about what happened and how it became law. We just want to know how it's going to be finalized, because it's not a done deal yet, but it's very close. Any questions? Watching early. So Dean says the fact that most of the strongest UAP related components emerged from these negotiations, even in the face of hostility from some enclaves within the DoD, is a testament not only to the prime sponsors of Gillibrand and Gallego, but also to the quiet but essential support of the Democratic chairman of the Senate and House committees on armed services, Senator Jack Reed, who's a Democrat out of Rhode Island, Congressman Adam Smith, Democrat out of Washington, and the Republican ranking members of those committees, Senator Jim Inhofe, Republican out of Oklahoma, and Congressman Mike Rogers, a Republican out of Alabama, as well as the bipartisan leadership of the House and Senate Intelligence Committees. And this is a quote I had never seen before. You guys may have seen it. Following the release of a congressionally requested unclassified report on the UAP back in June 25th, Chairman Reed, so Jack Reed, Democrat from Republican, Democrat from Rhode Island, Chairman Reed issued a statement that, quote, "We simply lack the information necessary to determine what these objects are and what they're doing. So we need to get that information. Let's keep watching the skies, studying and learning. If the government acquires evidence of things it can't explain, let's examine it from every angle and be forthright with the American people." If that's really how he feels, that's great. I had never seen that quote before. We need more people like him. This is just more people that he had just mentioned, Rogers and Smith. And Dean says, Senator co-sponsoring the Gillibrand Amendment was very important to his Republican colleagues. And he was publicly vocal on the UAP issue. He's still the vice chairman of the Senate Select Intelligence Committee. So Rubio was very important. Him speaking up was very important. And Dean says a striking degree of quiet consensus that has developed on the UAP issue, particularly among members of the congressional committees that have the greatest access to pertinent classified information, which makes sense because if they've seen the 23-minute video or whatever other videos that we have not seen, they would say, whatever this is, we need to figure out what the hell this is, because that does not look like human technology. So, but I'm speculating. I mean, Lou has spoken about how people left the briefing saying, that's not ours. When lawmakers who do not sit on national security committees see such bipartisan consensus on a matter involving classified info, most usually it will defer to it. He says the House Services Committee, Armed Services Committee, when they incorporated Gallego's language into the version of the NDAA, every one of the House 435 members had the opportunity to ask for permission, for specific NDAA amendments on the floor. The House Rules Committee received 860 such amendment requests, but not one touched the UAP section, not one of them. So it went straight through. Likewise, on the Senate, the matter advanced quietly. Although Senator Gillibrand tweeted and gave several interviews on the subject, there was no visible opposition from any senator, nor any discussion of UAP on the Senate floor. I don't know if they don't want to, if they're afraid to talk about it, or they just, they're like, we've heard this is serious. This needs to go through. I don't know which is which, but it's going through. So a good thing. I'll stop there and just take some comments. Let's see. It's hard to navigate some of these. Seemed like to me there are more Republicans moving ahead in support. Nope, that's not true. It's not true. That's what I just read. That's what Dean is talking about. Somebody said that, Mule, and Dean was like, nope, it's Democrat and Republican. Especially Heinrich, Democrat, who I just played the video, was very vocal. So I don't know about if the Democrats I mentioned are progressive Democrats. I don't know. And me personally, I think most people know I'm pretty far left on most things. Omega is in the house. Lazar, let's see. Lazar must be attacked and dismissed as part of the managed narrative discussion we set to acknowledge unidentified marital phenomena whilst deliberately ignoring decades of reverse engineering activity. I don't know. I don't know what the story is. You know, that's why I stayed 50-50 when I wrote my article about Lazar. But thanks to Lazar, I met Eric Davis thanks to Lazar because we argued over the Jeremy Corbell documentary, and that's how I got to know Eric. And so we battled on Facebook and then became friends. The worst part about all that stuff in DC is dysfunctional with everything. And yeah, I know it's not encouraging. That's why we need private funding. Damn it. I thought Joe voted for Trump. Common knowledge. I think most of my family voted for Trump. I live in a part of Long Island that's it's conservative, but it's very big Trump country. So yeah, see, Lazar got me to talk with Eric Davis. I became friends with Eric Davis. Therefore, Lazar is good. And when I was leaning more towards Lazar being true, his story being true, Eric was like, I talked about it with him on Facebook Messenger, and he's like, he didn't understand it, but he didn't block me or anything, you know. Eric has NDAs. Lou has NDAs, and Gary Nolan was on Twitter saying Eric knows what he can and can't talk about it. He's very, very smart guy. So, yeah, if somehow Trump gets in 2024 and we get to the moon, that will be his slogan. All right. I'm not sure how much more left is here. There are many controversies and conflicting stories regarding past involvement by the military, intelligence, and other government organizations related to UFO phenomena and within the UFO research community. Perhaps some of those matters will be clarified to some degree in the next few years. Talks about the Inspector General evaluation related to the DoD and how they've handled UAP. And I will get my Danny Sheehan 70,000 word. I'm probably not going to worry about adding audio to it. It's just too much. I can do a video, but I have to pick and choose because 70,000 words is so ridiculous. And I know we haven't heard from Sheehan in a while. Don't know what he's up to. And some of the stuff he says in there I disagree with. But then he talks about things have not been, little has been publicly revealed about the evaluation by the IG. Some of it, and I read, some of it was obtained by John Greenwald. I read it. There's really not a lot of insight. There's not a lot of insight there. And he shows some of the stuff Greenwald was able to get with FOIA, but there's not much going on there. We don't know how long it's going to take, what they're focusing on. It's just best to forget about it for now. And then hopefully one day they say, guess what? We have a result, and hopefully we get to see what their evaluation turned up. And what is 70,000 Omega Point? Did I just say 70,000? The ambiguous utterances of the director of national. Here we go. So he talks about Avril Haines and her talking about extraterrestrial. Maybe it comes extraterrestrially. And Dean, and I tweeted about this and how I was like, I don't know how Julian Barnes, a New York Times reporter, came up with how Avril, what she meant by extraterrestrially. And so Dean talked about that. And he says, on this topic of life out there, he asks Haynes about the report back in June 25th, DNI report. And she says, I think the bottom line is we don't understand everything we're seeing after outlining several categories of more or less prosaic possible causes for some UAP incidents. And then Dean puts including natural phenomena in parentheses. Anyway, she concluded, but of course, there's always the question of, is there something else that we simply do not understand that might come extraterrestrially. So then on the 24th of November, Julian Barnes with the New York Times, who's written some negative articles on UFOs, he wrote about that, and he says Ms. Haynes' extraterrestrial remark was not necessarily referring to space aliens, but rather more pedestrian explanations such as meteors and solar flares that could impact flight safety issues, which I thought was nonsense. And Omega pointed out, she's basically saying there are certain things we don't understand. Like, really, you don't understand meteors or solar flares? So yeah, there's no explanation of where Julian Barnes came up with that. He's interpreting Haynes's remark and saying it's about meteors and solar flares. Did you have a source that told you that? Did you talk to Haynes? Nope, doesn't explain it. So Dean says, I have twice queried the ODNI, National Director of National Intelligence, as to whether the New York Times was correct to suggest that Haynes twice used the term "we don't understand" to refer to certain phenomena that she suggested might have origin extraterrestrial. What she really meant to convey was the experts in the intelligence community seeking to analyze certain sensor data or images do not understand. Basically, what she meant is we don't understand that they're seeing meteors and solar flares. And so Dean wrote to the Director of National Intelligence to clarify that. Twice, received no reply. He wrote to Barnes, and he says, I have also asked Mr. Barnes if he had any authority for the interpretive assertion as to what was in Director Haynes's mind when she spoke of extraterrestrial things not understood. Julian Barnes replied by email, the sentence explaining what Director Haynes meant was based on sound reporting. It accurately reflects her thinking. But he still doesn't explain how he got that information. No source, no quote from her, no conversation with her. So I just don't trust him. I'm sorry. That's ridiculous. How do you, well, it's sorry. It's like, how dare you question my reporting? And that is it. And then he puts the official, so Dean actually put the official language too. So there it is. It's also on my blog. I took out all the numbers, which probably didn't need to do because Dean already did this. Anyway, it's also on my blog. That's it. Not a fan of Sheehan. Omega, what's 70,000? Did I say something about 70,000 I already forgot about? Not a fan of Sheehan, and I am an old-time liberal. Yeah, there are people I'm not a fans of his. I don't know if it was worth doing 70,000 words of a Danny Sheehan transcript, but it's there. I'll put it up. It's a lot of it's repetitive. It's interviews, lectures, lecture I attended, little mini interview I did with him at UFO MegaCon in Laughlin, and which I did not do earlier. Folks new to my channel, my blog is ufojoe.net. My Twitter, for people who dare to go on Twitter, is at the UFO Joe. PayPal. Check out my Twitter. I do a lot of Twitter stuff. In the blog, I put up 4 transcripts of Kelleher, Knapp, Lukatsky, combination of those 3. And I think I'm going to do, I'm going to do more notes and cliff notes and some quotes. Sometimes somebody does a quote. It's too good for me to just paraphrase. So Kelleher did an interview on the Paracast, which was not a lot new, but there was some new. I want to definitely paraphrase some of it and then also quote. So that is my live stream. You guys stayed here. I appreciate that. And let's see. Do you plan on doing any future Zoom calls? I suspect any new ones will be without SOR. I don't know. What do you mean? Explain. You mean Zoom's like being a guest on a show? No, Marco, I have not. But I have, but not really officially with a date. So I need to give him a date and see if he says yes. So yes, kind of. You mean Dave Scott having me on his show? If that's what you're asking, he hasn't invited me on his show in a really long time. So if that's what you're asking, I probably will not be on his show. I've done some smaller shows, which I need to link to. I did a show. I forget the name of the show. I did it last week, and then I have to do another show. Yeah. Dave hasn't asked me to be on a show in a very long time, so I don't know why. But it's like, I'm trying to keep up with everything, and I'm not doing a great job. So it's my own stuff I'm trying to get through. So it's hard to keep up and then also do interviews. And I do get requests, and some people have not responded to. I get a lot of requests, and DMs are backed up. So I do owe somebody, one of my patrons, an interview, which I need to do. The interview I did recently was, actually, I can link to it here. Some of it was personal stuff. It was my job, and that's what we started off talking about. It was a little different than my normal interviews, and it's on Spotify, which I really do not like. It's the worst thing. But Jeff Kingsbury did an interview with me, and I'll just link to it in the comments. I need to put it on Twitter. It was good. It was different. Yeah, time is limited. I mean, I can do better with my time management as always. But anyway, so that's the link. I don't know if that'll even work. What kind of link is that? All right, guys, I'm going to go. Thanks for being here. Thanks for the questions. Thanks for listening. Trying to think interviews coming up in the next couple of months. Before that, I just got to figure out who the heck I want to interview. And as always on Twitter, I will see you guys next time. And if you're not on Twitter, I'll see you here. Thanks for listening. And thanks for the questions. Peace, AA. Arturo, I can't pronounce your first name.